make sure you get an electronic medical record as soon as you could possibly afford it. Genesis Lifestyle Medicine did not have an electronic medical record until it was over 10 years old. We did paperwork, 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 all on paper. And once we moved to electronics, we'll never go back to paper. Let me tell you one important thing. When it comes to scaling your business, if you want to scale properly, your first clinic or the soonest you possibly can, get onto an electronic medical record system that allows you to scale across multiple locations without you having to sign out and sign back in. So, electronic medical record system that allows you to toggle between locations. You don't have to sign out and sign back in for a different location. Look for a system like that. Why? Because when you start to do patient consent, patient documentation, a lot of times patients, we call them clients, will go from one area to another, move from one city to another. Now, if you are growing and they move across the city or something like that, and you have another clinic in that area, good. That chart will still be transferable to the electronic medical record or the location that they moved to or they moved closer to. For us, when they move across states or into major cities, we have people moving from LA to Nashville, from Las Vegas to Dallas. We're able to continue that client's care in the next location because the electronic medical record speaks to itself and it's easily toggleable. Toggleable? I don't know if that's a word, but we'll figure it out. You can easily toggle between locations and move a chart from one location to another without any issues whatsoever. Now, that solves the problem of being able to do documentation across multiple locations. One of the things you also need to make sure is that your consents and documentation is legal proof. So you want to make sure that you always have a good, strong legal team that is able to review your contracts. A great one that is pretty inexpensive compared to their size is called ByrdAdatto, ByrdAdatto. They're a great company who they own AmSpa. They run multiple different companies. They work with a group called Skytail that buys and sells medical companies. So they know essentially in every single state what the rules are. So we hired them to look over our consents, look over our paperwork, make sure our structure in our business was what it was supposed to be. So you want to make sure that you have all that documentation done properly, done correctly, and pass it through legal pathways to make sure that you are doing everything you can to protect yourself as much as possible. Lastly, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. Whatever you do, document, document, document. Now, the good thing about cash pay medical clinics is that you have to document a lot less. You don't have to put the ICD-10 codes and 14 different body parts inspected on your exam in person. You don't anymore. Just put what you need in order to justify your treatment. And if someone else were to read it, they see what you were doing and your process of thinking, and they can justify your treatment. That's it. Otherwise, there's no other reason. As you do grow as well, you want to make sure that you or your manager is reading charts at least 5 to 10 a month, reviewing each provider and making sure that the provider is documenting properly. You also want to make sure that your MAs, your RNs, all your support staff, your sales staff, they're also documenting properly as well. Documentation is key. It should be one of your almost core values in your company. For us, that's accountability, doing your documentation the way you're supposed to. But make sure that you are documenting everything to a T. So number one, make sure you get an electronic medical record as soon as you could possibly afford it. Genesis Lifestyle Medicine did not have an electronic medical record until it was over 10 years old. We did paperwork, 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 all on paper. And once we moved to electronics, we'll never go back to paper. But do an electronic medical record. They're cheap now. They were more expensive back then when we started. Now they're a lot less expensive, even when you have multi-state, like corporate size type of clinics and companies. It's still cheaper than doing it all on paper because we ran the data of how much it would cost to print versus how much it would cost to actually use the EMR system. So do an EMR system that can scale. Number two, make sure you have a legal team that can read all your consents and documentation. And number three, just make sure your team knows how to document and you review that documentation every once in a while to make sure they're staying on track.